Good morning.
So Hans, we're back with our series on being an elder. This is for men. We're having a conversation about taking greater responsibility in our lives, and this is at the heart of men having a deeper sense of purpose, connection, meaning in their life. And as Jordan Peterson says, or encourages everyone to do, to take on more responsibility. And he suggests taking on the heaviest load that you can. And as we've talked about in many of our previous conversations here in this broadcast, taking on the role of being an elder for a younger man is powerful in so many ways. Develops your leadership capacity. It restores this lost natural wealth that humans normally pass on to each other. We've farmed out so much of things that used to be given. We've put a price tag on so much of what just used to be shared inside of a family or inside of a tribe. We've delegated so many things to governments, to corporations, and I think you can point at so many of the ills in society, from the high rates of suicide among men to depression, addiction, isolation and neuroticism, anxiety, these things that are very abnormal for animals. We're living in a very disconnected, disjointed world, and it's up to, as I see it, up to the elders to take on more than just like my personal happiness, my personal success, but to spread our arms like who we're responsible for.
Yes.
Take in more people.
And these calls are not just like us urging men to take on more responsibility, to pick up a bigger load, to be an elder for younger men. It's also our gift to anyone listening. It's also us showing up as an elder or as a brother for any man who is ready to take on more responsibility and a bigger load. Just before the call, I was talking to Michael about a couple of the people I know, people I work with, people I resonate with, I'm inspired by, and I'm talking about Federico or Philippe de Brouwer, if you're watching, talking about Jim Simmons, and these are men who are inspiring to me, because I can see they have an incredible gift to give to humanity, to the women in their life, to the men in their life, to their communities, and in some form or other they've forgone answering that call, or they could pick up a bigger load. I see their power so great that they could inspire many more people, and I want to be the one who helps them bring their voice, their strength, their genius, their caring, their insights to the world. So it's not just a call to be an elder, it's also I want to be in service of men who are willing, committed, prepared to pick up a bigger load. So
today in our series, Hans, we're going to talk about another way to take on becoming an elder. And that we're talking about how to become an elder, how to move even more into that role. And one of the things that we had listed was to confront the younger man. And I would say one of the things to confront him about is to remind him of his people, to remind him of his younger brothers, remind him of who looks up to him, and how much of an impact he already does have, but how I remember actually being in Kenya, 2006, and we were there visiting some school kids out in the countryside, and financially speaking, they're very, very poor. And at lunchtime, and their schoolrooms some of them didn't have even electric lighting. Most of them didn't have glass windows. It was just like some rebar windows and then open air. They wore the same thing to school every day. They ate the same thing at school. Like, there was real poverty there. And at lunch, I was very surprised. They had a TV hooked up, and what the kids watched was hip-hop artists from America, singing about bitches and hoes and bling bling and all of this. And in that moment, I was like, oh man, like, I wonder if these hip-hop artists back in America have any clue how many people they're reaching all around the world, beyond America, beyond American youth or whatever, like how far and wide their influence goes, and what kind of message they could be passing on, what kind of, raising young people up, because hip-hop in the beginning was a lot more of a stand up for something kind of movement.
Yes.
But it, in a lot of ways, kind of devolved into just, bling bling and bitches and hoes and all of this. So to come back to the main point, I think a great thing for an elder to confront a younger man about is about all the people that already look up to him, the impact he already has, and how he could have a much greater impact.
Is that because you see that there's a yearning for that, and it would solve for him a lot? Or is it because you think a man should do that? It's his duty for humanity.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the real power of all of this is when someone feels the invitation from their heart, not the should,
not the yelling from Michael Skye,
not the judgment. So reminding him, it's remembering. There's honor involved in remembering. We talk about remembering a lot as we talk about honor and honoring. And for him to remember his younger brother, these are people he cares about, right? So to remember these people he cares about and the influence, like the way he makes decisions, it influences their future. It influences their path in life. So for me, that invokes a connection of the heart. It's not a should. It's not a shoulding on.
And therein lies, I think, one of the most valuable distinctions between whatever we're calling it here. I was going to say tough love, but the powerful tough love and the weaker, because a lot of the say bad parenting, or people giving advice to others or telling them what they should do, is justified in the name of, like, it's good for them. But what I hear in this is you're calling it out because his heart is yearning for it, is craving it. So it's in line with what he really wants. It's in line with what he really sees. It's in line with what makes him feel alive.
Well, it Yeah, and here's where I think the role for the elder comes in. It might be far more than what he already knows that he wants or sees or whatever. It could really be coming from a place of thinking that something else would be better from him. But I think the distinction is not coming from judgment, not coming from you assume that you know him and what would be better for him.
Yes. Is being an ally first.
Yeah, I think being an elder, partly you have to have a base of this younger man needs to know that you genuinely care about him.
Yes.
And he needs to feel that.
Yes.
And this is not you can't shortcut this.
Yes.
So I think that your authority with him is something that has to be built up over time.
Yes.
By you truly giving a fuck about him, spending time with him, listening to him, looking at the world the way he's looking at the world. And I think the other thing is,
as simple as that is the hardest part. You really got to give a fuck first. You really got to take care first. You really got to be an ally first. And you will know it because it comes from the heart. You look in your heart. Are you really caring for this person?
Yeah. And I would take the metric even further. Does this person feel that you do get them and care about them? Because you can feel like, yeah, I care about you, and this is why I'm judging you and telling you what to do.
Right.
Right. But the thing that really makes the difference is if the other person feels it. But there's another important component here, and it's, does the younger man respect you? Does he respect you? Because if he doesn't respect you, it doesn't matter if he feels like you care about him. He doesn't respect you. So,
or does he respect the part you're giving advice about? This is very important. Because why would you listen to someone who cares? Or I don't listen to anyone giving me nutrition or gym advice when that person is not looking the way I want to look, or is not living the way I want to live.
Right.
So.
Or money advice if they're don't have the kind of money that you want to be making, etc. So both of those, are foundational to be a man worthy of his respect and to be in his life and genuinely care about him.
Yes.
I noticed when I went back to spend time to visit some of my family back in Texas, and I had one of my nephews came over a couple of times, and I had a sense that he wasn't listening to me in a way, like I didn't feel like I had as much influence with him as I could. And the reality is I've not spent that much time with him. I really have not spent that much time with him. So very easily in his world, I'm just another adult with an opinion about his life. So, this is, people like Jordan Peterson as an author, as a public figure, people with a podcast, they can only do so much. They can only go so far. What young men need is real men in their real life. And not to say that, being an author, holding events, doing things on a bigger scale doesn't have an impact, because it does, and it can. But there's very much an important role to be there in the actual life of the young man, in person, around the fire, walking down the street, hiking through the mountains, sharing meals. Like you can imagine our young friend Fair in Mexico. It's one thing if he had just found us on the YouTube and was watching our podcast and stuff. Another thing if we're banging on his door because he's not out there for the morning walk in the morning.
Come on, Fair, get up!
And walking down the street with him, facing what he's facing in real life, having a drink with him, And it's irreplaceable.
Yes. Wow, and that's it. Yeah, that's a great point actually, because elderhood starts right there. It's not, it's not this. I mean, you could do some eldering by broadcasting, but it's right there, right next to you. The people living with you, living down the street, your family, your brothers from before. It's right there.
Yeah.
And that's the opportunity. It's fantastic, no?
So to come back to the main point we're talking about today, we're talking about confronting the young man, and that you have to have a certain amount of authority first. Which, when I say authority, I'm not talking about how we in the West often think of authority as like a job title or a role of power. It's no. The other person is granting you authority.
Because she knows that you care, and he or she respects you and what you have to say.
Yes. So, but then let's talk more about these confronting conversations. One could be the kind that you were talking about early on in our conversation, Hans, about maybe confronting some of these men about the greater impact that they could have in the world.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about Philippe, who's a very good friend of mine, and I want to call him right now. It's just, I see the power he has, I see the genius he has, I see how he could help people, and part of him, because he's a very different man, part of him has given up on men and women, on humanity, and in a way he's standing by the sideline commenting, like in the Muppet Show, the two older men, and I see how much he could change lives, and he still has that fire, and I would love to find a way with him that he could bring his genius to the world and reach more people. Yeah, and maybe a first step is saying that, to Philippe, come on, man, don't give up on humanity. There are way more powerful ways that you could bring your voice, your genius, your gift to the world than what you're doing now. There's a bigger load to pick up, and I would love to be in service of that. Be ready to pick that up, to help you carry or find a way to do that. Yes.
Yeah, so we can confront another man on who we see that they are and could be in the world. Give them a mission, so to speak. Call them to a mission, we could literally call a man to a mission for his people, right? But in another way, we could also awaken them to the calling in their heart, like to get present to what it is they feel called to stand for, who they feel called to stand for.
Well, it's both, When I think of Christopher, a good friend of mine, and I can see how a lot of his demons are right here, And when we collaborate, when we work, I see a big role for him in inspiring other men, because the journey he went through is incredible, and he's an incredible warrior, and that story alone is so inspiring and uplifting, and I could move so many things with younger men. And so a big part of our collaboration is not me trying to lift him out that, but see the bigger purpose he can have, And so I've been calling him forth into his role for younger men, taking care of them, coaching them, inspiring them, talking to them. And it's been incredible. When he steps into that role, it's like he picks up a bigger load, but all the load of the weight of like this internal thing falls away. Because now he says it, he's on top of his game. He's like, and it's, you pick up a bigger load, but there's a big load that falls off your shoulders too, in a way, And It's like the Grant Cardone, he says, go big or go bigger. It's like by picking up a bigger load, by having a bigger vision, these small problems or these problems that you think you have become very small all of a sudden and just fall away, And so you get to pick the questions you're sitting in. You get to pick the problems you want to deal with. That's incredible, no? Just take on a bigger load and it will all fall away. It's like when you're having pain somewhere, you can cause pain elsewhere that's bigger. You're going to think about that, not about that, not about the small one.
Yes.
Yes.
That's what I was trying to do with the ice bath this morning.
Yeah, first you need to respect, though, You need to be the other person has to feel that you care. The other person has to respect your opinion on those things,
Yeah, so, okay. Confronting. Yeah, it's a big role for an elder.
By the way, you
have those tough conversations.
You had a great role. You had one of the biggest roles for me as an elder. Because when we met, you saw I wanted to be a businessman. And the first step in being a businessman is taking full responsibility. And so what my heart was yearning for, what I really wanted, what my values and goals were. And so anytime I was playing the victim, you called it out. It's no victimhood, no victimhood, And that's a great example of calling me out. Not because it bothers you or not because you think it's right, but because you know what I want. You know what my values are. You know what I really yearn for. And so you speak to that guy, And so whenever I'm playing a victim, it's not in line with what I deeply desire and want. And so you call it out and you say, no victimhood, And that was an incredible lesson. So sometimes you do it well also. Yes.
Yeah. Well, this brings up an interesting point, actually, because, in being an elder, and maybe this is more the role of brothers, I don't know.
Well, they can use the same tactic, the same tool.
Yeah, I mean, there can be a role even for brotherly shaming. But at the core of it, you do still have to have that basis that you're a brother. Yeah, there is a role for. So many things are so easily labeled bullying these days and judged as if that's a negative thing. But I do feel that a role for brothers and elders is to kind of simulate the fighting, the confrontation, the hardship that your brother or the young man is going to face out there in the world. It's better if they can wrestle with that, play with that, learn how to deal with that, and rise up to meet that inside of the safe space of brotherly play and teasing and shit talking, what have you. And I think that inside of a group of men, someone who is not playing, they don't like it, whatever, they can be perceived as a potential danger to the rest of the group because they're not playing, or they're not meeting that challenge. Anyway, maybe a topic for a different day.
No, it is interesting. Yeah, maybe for a different day, because like Eastern philosophies, they almost have the opposite. Where in the Bushido it says no man will ever learn if you're bringing shame to him. And so it's like avoided at all cost to bring shame, and it's not seen as a powerful tool.
I wonder though, because we have this idea of the samurai and its movies and books and things like this, but I wonder if you get around a group of samurai, and they're going off for a battle or something. I mean, these guys are dying, and like there's no toilets, like they're shitting in the woods, and they also have sexual desire. Life is also, you know, it is what it is. There's suffering. I have to imagine that as men, they're also at times wrestling with each other, talking shit, making foul jokes. You know, like I really wonder, like, what was it really like? You know what I mean? Are they like really all the time, like everything's
well, maybe a good
beauty and
a good reflection of that is like I spent some time in Japan, and it's one thing to check it, how is it, and it's one thing to see what's the ambition, what's the ideal, and what's the use of it. Because Japanese would go, they're very like, yeah, they're very respectful, they're very spacious, but then sometimes they would drink, and they know how to drink, and it's like in the drunken state they find the freedom to do whatever more.
Right.
It's still not like, it's
well,
not like,
like,
but they would go really like hardcore in drinking and like and babbling and
yeah, you still need your release from all the confines of society.
Yes.
You know.
But yes.
And Native Americans, when they would go off to war, they would first paint their faces, take on almost like a different identity. So it's no longer their normal identity. They are now some wild, spirited beast, warlike, whatever. They would play the drums, they would dance, they would, you know, get into this whole altered state. And
well, yeah, and I've seen that. And if this is true, if it's in a, we're going off on a tangent, but if this is true and it is part of an altered state, then it's still not seen as part of how we live well. It's still not part of like, say for example, bringing shame as part of a constructive education of another man. See what I mean? So it would be part of a release, so to speak, but not be part as, is not seen as a constructive tool in making a man better.
Yeah,
we're speculating. I'm speculating. I want to stop.
You know
it
who
here.
Dan Pena is, right?
Yes.
Here's a guy that men respect because of his achievements, his different things, and he definitely brings the shame. But you get, if you spend enough time with him, you get, he really cares.
Yes,
he really cares about you, and he's not shaming you. He's shaming the parts of you that you've come to identify as you that he doesn't feel are you. It's like, no, that's how your mama saw you or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Or Patrice O'Neill, like when he has a show that I recommend to any Western man about relationship. It's called the Black Phillip Show, and it's tough love. It's just calling men out, but you know that he cares. You could feel it in that he's, and so he. It would be at some point shameful, but he's like, it's not like Dan Pena, you know, which is great. I really think it's great and powerful and entertaining. But he also like calls men out, like, "Come on, motherfucker," you know.
Yeah, and I think the big part of that is needed for the mama's boy, you know, the guy who's grown up with too much mothering, and he's too sensitive. You know, my brothers and I have done a lot of, you know, like both of my two younger sisters' kids. There was a lot of mothering because their mothers are great and their mothers are strong, and we took it on as our role to toughen them up, you know, talk shit to them, you know, and we want them to talk shit back. We want to see them fighting back. We want to see them, you know, talking back to us, because man, if they can't deal with their uncles doing it, they're going to be in trouble when it comes to the other guys in the high school or in the military or at work or whatever. You know, they're going to need to know how to deal.
He needs to know. He needs to know. He's always a crybaby. He's always a cry. Tough love it is, motherfucker. 5 points for the movie reference. You can put it in the comments.
Are you shaming me right now?
No, no, no.
So
I am not.
yes. Yeah, this is very much an inquiry still. You know, how do we be elders now when so much of elderhood is lost? I feel I feel the calling
Yes.
to be an elder. Hans, I know you do. And so yeah, we're having the conversation.
And we're putting out the call. And if you hear the call, you know, how to be an elder, the first step is to answer that call. Go back for a brother. Take care of a younger man. You know, see the vision that's possible when you would step into the role of an elder. That's the first step.
On the hero's journey, the first step is refusing the call.
Yes.
So, if you've first been like, nah, I don't want none of that elder stuff.
You're perfectly on track.
Yes, you're on the right path.
You're on the right path. Neo also refused the call first.
Yes.
You know, so
Yes.
this is to all you men out there. If you hear that call, and answer it. If you want, we are offering you our services for men who are willing to pick up a bigger load. We're here for you.
And tomorrow, yes, and maybe we'll talk about this tomorrow, but Hans, one of the things I realized I left out, I don't know how I left this out in talking about being an elder, but it's going back for a brother, going back for a younger brother.
You got some good stories. You got some good stories.
Yeah. I don't know if I'll tell them because I've told so many of them before, but
you can go back again.
Go back in time. Go back to the same stories.
We'll see you tomorrow.